Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Revenge Garden. I am Carmen Cook. Happy Easter to those of you who celebrate. Thank you for bearing with me today as I'm a little late getting out here to the garden, but I cannot wait to share these excerpts with you. So let's just dive right in. We're going to start with Leigh Edwards' Spring's Mystical Promise. Rhiannon sat up in the unfamiliar bed, a simple straw-stuffed mattress on the wooden frame. She felt the thick braid and stretched long legs, confirming she was in Elspeth's body for now. For the next 3 months, she'd live as the tall, blonde castle servant married to the sheriff's son, Godric, the brute responsible for so much criminality and who'd once tried to sell her into slavery. Sunlight peeked through the cracks near the window shutters, revealing Elspeth's husband, no, her husband, lying on his back beside her, snoring loudly. Completely vulnerable. Rhiannon was tempted to take her pillow and hold it over his face. That would solve many problems, but create even more. He was a robust man, and she couldn't bury his body on her own. Although she'd have no difficulty finding someone to help her, the punishment for murder or abetting a murderess was death. Because his father's power, the most common-born were afraid to cross Godric. Knowing Elspeth and Liliana suffered his mistreatment too filled Rhiannon with a steadily brewing fury. Women held little power in medieval Wessex. A wife was merely a possession, worth little more than a sheep or a cow, and nearly as easily replaced. Rhiannon longed to return to her own life with her Brocken. He'd respected her, valued her opinion, and recognized her intelligence. They'd been deeply, passionately in love and remarkably happy before the pact had changed everything. She felt Godric stir and was repulsed to see the protrusion between the covers. As a healer and a married woman, she knew that was a common morning occurrence, but the thought of his erect manhood revolted her. Quietly, getting out of bed, she held her breath when he turned over. She spotted a small trunk and found 2 plain kirtles Elspeth wore for work. The prettier blue gown was for market days and church. Rhiannon pulled a drab brown kirtle over her linen shift, located her stockings and put them on, and laced up short brown suede boots. She supposed Godric would expect her to prepare breakfast. She found the strike light on the mantel. Logs already in the hearth caught fire straight away. She'd heat water to wash her face. Glancing in the small cracked mirror upon the wall, Rhiannon untied the braid, pulled her fingers through, and rebraided the lovely thick golden blonde hair. Elspeth had beautiful blue eyes, flawless skin, and a form that drew much attention. It was grand being so tall. Inside the one cupboard were plates, tankards, and bowls, half a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth, and some salt and flour. The cold bin near the window alcove contained cheese, butter, and eggs. Godric stirred again, noisily belched. She smelled disgusting stale ale and stuck her tongue out, but quickly put it back up when he sat up, already scowling. "You don't have my food prepared," he growled, pulling back bed covers. He was unclothed and well aroused. She looked away. "I'll be ready soon enough. Get over here first." God, no. "I haven't yet relieved myself. I must hastily prepare your meal, and I've got to be at the castle soon." Godric glared. "This won't take long." He pointed to the bed. "Lift your skirts. Now." "I won't." She refused, uncertain what he'd do when she openly defied him. The thought of him bedding her made her slightly queasy. She'd heard he was vulgar and rough. It's unlawful to deny your husband his base needs. That is a wife's duty. His arrogance infuriated her. "I must use the privy, then I'll make your meal. Ensuring you're fed is also a wife's obligation." "You giving me lip, woman?" She didn't reply, but went straight outside. Using the wooden shack shared by probably a dozen large families wasn't a pleasant experience. Still, she believed she'd rather fall down the hole of bedded-smelling shitter than couple with Godric. When she was done, she pumped water and washed her hands. Inside the cottage, she found Godric lying atop the bed covers, pleasuring himself. She stopped short, shuddered, and turned away. He groaned gutturally, farted, and belched again. How would she endure this whole spring with him? Eggs frying in butter smelled good, but she wouldn't eat here. She heated bread, buttered it, and sliced cheese. Godric's boots loudly struck the stone floor. He was now attired in black leather tunic and breeches the sheriff or shire reeves men wore. A set of scales upon the chest depicted justice like those of the Roman goddess Justina. That was ironic, with all the unjust deeds Godric had done. Drawing the chair out with a screech, he sat and impatiently drummed his hand. Even his scent nauseated her. Godric narrowed his eyes. "You look like you're about to spew, woman. Did you finally carry my child? You've sturdy round hips for birthing. Otherwise I'd have married someone who's a better cook and eager to share my bread." "Is your self-opinion so high you believe I wanted to wed you? I would have requested my father choose a knight. They're fine, handsome lot, strong, chivalrous, honorable, and valiant." She knew that would displease him. The knights and the sheriff's men had a long-standing rivalry. Watch your mouth. I am the sheriff's son. You're a tall, plain, lowly castle servant. I got the short end of the stick in this undesired marriage. She bit her tongue and set his plate before him. Sarding hell. Eggs, bread, and cheese again? Go to the butcher. Get some damn meat, since you don't favor skinning and gutting the animals I hunt. She whirled to face him. You expect me to ready animals, shop for food, make your meals, clean your cottage, and tend your cardinal needs when I work dawn to dusk at the castle? Perhaps you could go to the butcher, or maybe you should request the king give me more time to serve you. You've always had a bitter tongue, but you're belligerent this day. Probably from being around that mad Lady Brockwell. I saw you at the brothel with her when the little whore Selina was hurt too. I hoped that wench would die. I'd wish painful deaths for her and the mad healer. That he dare suggest a tragic possibility for her friends infuriated Ronwin. I wish Sir Brocken had beheaded you and not Ulrich. Godric's face turned bright red. He stood so fast his chair tipped, and when he lunged for her, she jumped back. He fell face first into his eggs. Wiping yolk off his face, he snarled and raised a hand. She lifted her chair, but he yanked it away and hurled it to the stone floor where it shattered. His attempt to frighten her made her own temper sore. She grabbed the ale pitcher and threw it, but he dodged it and it smashed. Shards of broken pottery, splattered ale covered the table and floor. Godric's gray eyes bulged. He roared and charged again. She picked up another chair, then threw it. Splintered wood flew about. I will not permit you to touch me, she shouted, nor bed me, not ever. You sarding bitch, he cried, outraged. You're mine. How would you stop me? Rhiannon backed towards the door. She knew the danger, but she couldn't seem to tide the fury on behalf of everyone this horrid man had hurt. I could poison your food, hold a pillow over your face, gut you while you sleep. You'd be wise to lay your head elsewhere or sleep with one eye open. I'll make you suffer for daring to threaten me. If I'm killed protecting myself, so be it. However, having 2 wives die violently would harm your prospects for finding a 3rd wife to carry your sons. It's unlikely even your father could secure another union. He shook his head. You have gone bloody mad. She alone could change her circumstance, and the realization was intoxicating. I'll tolerate your abuse no longer. Now, I must be off to the castle. You'll clean this damn mess first. Then I'll be late. The king could issue a worse punishment than you, husband. She gritted her teeth. She spotted the walking stick by the door that once belonged to the mysterious old crone. Evidently, it came with Rhiannon during the transformation. She was glad for the power and protection. Being married to Godric, she would need it. That is Leanne Edwards' Spring's Mystical Promise. And a quick sneak peek at the story that I am writing for Loving Hearts Anthology, which will release this June. It's up for pre-order now, so grab your copy while you can. And this is Colin. It's pink. Colin glanced in the rearview mirror and tried to hide his amusement at the horror on his son's face. It is. I don't want to stay in a pink house, Owen said with a mutinous expression, his dark eyes squinting and his lips firming into a hard line. We're boys. Boys should stay in blue houses or gray houses or that white house we were at before, not this pink one. Colin shook his head and stepped out of the parked car to get their bags from the trunk, not wanting to admit that he needed a minute before he answered. Returning to Misfit Harbor was uncomfortable for him too, but not because of the color of the B&B. He had some amends to make. Popping open the trunk of their rental car, Colin grabbed the suitcase and garment bag and took another deep breath. He'd get Owen situated and then reach out to someone. He hadn't quite decided who would be the most receptive to his news and give him a chance to explain. Patrick would probably lead with his fist, but he'd calm down and listen to what Colin had to say. Finn might not talk to him at all. And then there was their mom. What could he say to her? He shook his head and moved to the rear passenger door and pulled it open. Come on, he told Owen, stepping back to allow him space to hop down. Why can't we stay at that other place? Owen asked, popping his seatbelt open and grabbing his backpack before hopping out of the car and slamming the door. The Newbrook Inn, the first place we stopped, had a pipe burst. There's no water there, so Mimi Cartwright called Miss Ito to get us a room over here. You said your family lives here, Owen asked, dragging his feet as he followed Colin towards the pink Victorian bed and breakfast named the Cherry Blossom House. Why can't we stay with them instead of in a pink house? Colin felt his lip twitch. My mom and brothers live in town, but I didn't tell them we were coming yet. Why not? I wanted to interview for the job first, he said, repeating the same reason he'd given the last 8,000 times Owen had asked. But we'll see them while we're here, and you'll finally get to meet everyone. Will they like me? Owen asked, tugging at the straps of his backpack and lifting his chin. The thread of worry softened his voice and made Colin turn back and drop to his knees so he was eye level with his son. They are going to love you. But how do you know? How could he explain this in a way a 5-year-old would understand? I know because I know them. And I know you, and you are the most awesome kid in the world. Trust me, okay? Owen nodded and offered a small smile, which Colin returned, hoping his grin was enough to soothe Owen's doubts. He owed Owen a family who would love and cherish him the way he deserved to be loved, a family who would always have his back and help him feel secure. It's what Amanda would have wanted for Owen, and he was going to do everything he could to make sure he got it. Blowing out a breath, he stood and took Owen's hand in his own, so they stepped up to the porch together. Decorative scroll work lined the railings, giving a delicate feel to the structure that was at odds with the rustic surroundings. There was a small plaque by the door listing the Cherry Blossom House as a historic landmark, and if he wasn't mistaken, there'd be a view of Puget Sound from the backside of the house. In the summer, he bet they'd be lucky enough to see whales moving through the strait. Needed to look for a house that had a view of the water. Owen would get a kick out of that. Giving the screen door a firm knock, Colin stepped back, waiting for Mrs. Ito to admit them. Being right on the edge of town's Main Street, called First Street, not Main, wasn't what he'd planned, and standing on the porch made him feel exposed, like everyone was watching him. It was something he'd have to get used to again if they did move back, when they moved back. A shadow moved behind the window in the door, and Colin pushed Owen a step back just as the door opened and he felt his jaw drop. Riss? The lithe woman with pitch-black hair, impenetrable eyes, and a heart-shaped face that haunted his dreams offered him a small smile. Hello, Colin. Nice to see you again. Again, that is just one of the stories that is being featured in the Loving Hearts Anthology, which will be out this June, celebrating Loving Day. I hope you enjoyed today's excerpts. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.